So today I wanted to talk about some things that just came to me while I was in my biology class earlier today. And one of them was the concept of there being 7 characteristics of all living organisms in what the biological sciences consider to be an alive thing, all true living things. Because viruses have a lot of the characteristics, and you'll find other things that have a few characteristics, but not all of them. The 7 characteristics of life, and that number 7, it kind of clicked to me for a minute, and I just started writing down some stuff that occurred to me in that moment. There are 7 names of God. There are 7 angels of the 7 churches, 7 colors of the rainbow, 7 characteristics of life, and the Son of God holds the 7 stars in his right hand, and 7 is very prominent when it comes to the names of God and all these things. A lot of this is written down in Revelation, but I find it very interesting that you have all these 7s associated with God essentially, and then you have the 7 characteristics of living things, the most important creations of God. And then I also had another interesting thing. This is an old question, and a lot of people will just sort of dismiss this straight off, but the fact is, from what biological science can determine, cells must come from other cells. And that's it. Like, no one has ever seen cells come into being from any source other than another cell. That's just a thing. It's like an axiom. Life has to come from other life. Well, biological science has yet to determine any kind of root for the tree of life or any kind of origin for the first cell, because if all cells must have a cell to give birth to them, there had to be that first cell. And they just really don't want to talk about it, because they know they don't actually have a scientific answer, and the actual answer is beyond what they're willing to accept. So mostly that question is ignored, and when it's not ignored, they just come up with all the, it might have been this, it might have been that, and blah, blah, blah. Never mind. Not really that important. We all know what the actual answer is. And another thing that I thought was interesting was that, what's it called? There was, let's see, the professor threw up another slide that was, there are different types of reproduction in living things. There is asexual reproduction, which is like, a single organism that gives off, just like takes a piece of itself off, and then that piece becomes another living thing, and etc., etc. And then, of course, you have sexual reproduction, which requires 2 or more. Well, 2 other entities. And 2 separate entities and melding together kind of thing. And what I thought was rather odd is how do I put this? So in Genesis you have God who creates life on earth, molds Adam from the clay, and then breathes his spirit into him. And then from there, he takes a piece of Adam and splits that out, and then uses that to create Eve. And then from there, just like multiplication continues. And it's almost like, spiritually speaking, and also this comes down to another thing, that is that spiritually speaking, according to the scriptures, in the kingdom of God and in heaven, there is no male or female, there is no free or bond, there is no, there are no Germans, then Americans, there are no Israelites and Gentiles, there's only those who are of the Spirit. And the basic thing is, the spirit does not actually have a gender, but the physical body has a gender. And it's like if you had a whole bunch of totally identical people, and then you gave them either a key or a lock, and then they just kind of lived out their lives, and they all had that from the beginning. And then I mean, you would be able to pretty obviously tell what if they were using it correctly or not correctly. But the basic point that I was getting at is spiritual reproduction is asexual, and physical reproduction is sexual for human beings. Like, every person, when born, their spirit is just kind of shaped by the experiences they have, which is largely dependent on the body that they're born into. But the spirit itself is more free form, and it's like a gas. It expands to fill whatever container it is put into. So the spirit of one person, had it been taken out and put into a different body, it would have expanded to fill that body, and then it would have had whatever characteristics that body had. Just a thing. And then another thing that I was getting down to was what my professor said struck me was, he was saying, we're going to be talking about why that is, and we're going to be talking about why that is, about a lot of stuff. And it really struck me that, like why certain DNA changes happen, or, why this and why that. And what really struck me is science does not answer why. Science answers what. Why is a totally different question, and science has absolutely nothing to do with why. Science has to do with the study of, these are things that happen. Why is a study of, for what reason / purpose do these things happen. It's an important distinction. I mean, if I was to throw a rock off of a cliff, and it hit into another rock, and it hit into two rocks, and then, I eventually, cause a chain reaction that starts an avalanche. The scientific study of that would be to, if they studied that and then they found out, oh yeah, there was a person somebody up there threw a rock off here and started this avalanche. And then they'd be like, so that's why the avalanche happened. No, that's not why that happened. That's what happened. The why of the matter is determined by why ever I specifically decided, hey, I'm going to take this rock and I'm going to throw it off this cliff and I'm going to start an avalanche, kind of thing. The why is whatever I was thinking that made me go, yeah, I want to do that. And the what is what actually happened. Science is the study of the what. It has nothing to do with the why, and it's incredibly dishonest to say that it does. Anyway, let me know what you thought of this video in the comments below. Please like, comment, and subscribe. You have a blessed day.